Good evening, my little creatures of the night. Mr. Wendigo back again, and boy, have I got a bone-dry tale for you tonight that'll leave you absolutely parched in terror. Let's see what the desert has whispered to me this time. Ah, yes, here we are. The dry washes of northern New Mexico, those ancient riverbeds that only remember being rivers when it rains. Peaceful during the day, deadly after dark. The Hispano and Pueblo communities have known for centuries. Never cross the wash after sunset. The Tewa speak of Pote save the dust-walker spirits that move through sand and stone like we move through air. And the old miners? Well, they had their own ideas about what lived beneath the surface, about El Arrastrado, the Dragged One. Tonight, we follow Eddie and Tara Martinez, a married couple on the brink of divorce, taking one last road trip to try and save what's left of their relationship. Their marriage counselor suggested reconnecting in nature. She should have been more specific about which nature, because when they take a shortcut through a dry wash near Tres Piedras to save time, well, let's just say some shortcuts don't lead where you think they do. This is your late night creature feature. And out in that wash, something with a ram's skull and three-fingered hands has been waiting a very, very long time for someone to ignore the warnings. Before we begin, I'm curious, where are you listening from tonight? Alone in your room? Driving through empty roads? Ever taken a shortcut you shouldn't have? Drop a comment and let me know. I like knowing who's out there in the dark with me. Now then, let's talk about shortcuts through the desert. Dry wash. Look, taking a shortcut through New Mexico desert at night isn't smart. Eddie Martinez knows this. Tara Martinez knows this too. But knowing something and doing something are different animals, and right now they're doing the thing they know they shouldn't. They've been married 6 years. Good years at first, the kind where you finish each other's sentences and laugh at inside jokes nobody else gets. Then came year 3, when Eddie's dad got sick and Tara's promotion meant she was never home. Year 4, when they stopped having sex and started having conversations about having sex, which is worse. Year 5, when they slept in the same bed but faced opposite walls. Year 6, when Dr. Reyes, marriage counselor, nice lady, office that smelled like lavender and disappointment suggested this trip. You need to reconnect, she'd said, leaning forward in her chair with that look therapists get when they're about to tell you something you already know. Away from work, away from routine, away from all the small resentments you've been collecting like trading cards. Just the two of you and nature. Nature, right. Eddie had wanted to say that nature didn't fix anything, that a weekend in the desert wasn't going to make Tara stop working 70-hour weeks or make him stop resenting her for it. But he'd nodded instead because that's what you do when you're trying, when you're still trying. So here they are, Highway 285, north of Española, rented Nissan Sentra with 48,000 miles on it, and a check engine light that blinks on whenever they go uphill. It's October, cold coming down from Colorado at night, but the days still hit 70. The desert doesn't know what season it wants to be, same as their marriage doesn't know what it wants to be anymore. Eddie drives, Tara navigates. They haven't touched each other in 4 months, except for that one time after her sister's wedding when they'd both had too much wine and woke up the next morning feeling more lonely than before, like they'd tried to find each other in the dark and missed. The rental car hums down the highway, headlights cutting through black. The night spreads out on either side like spilled ink, like something you can't clean up. The radio stopped picking up stations 20 miles back. Now there's just the engine and the road and the silence that's become their third passenger. There's a bed and breakfast in Tres Piedras, Tara says, phone glowing blue in her lap. Good reviews. They serve breakfast until 10. There's a hot tub. We're not going to make Tres Piedras, Eddie says. She looks at the dash. The low fuel light blinks like a yellow eye. Has been for the last 5 miles. Shit. Yeah. There was a station in Ojo Caliente. We passed it 12 minutes ago. It was closed. Tara sets the phone down harder than necessary. Not quite a slam, close enough to count. Close enough that Eddie's jaw tightens and his hands grip the wheel a little tighter. You could have said something. You were looking at your phone. I was navigating. You were scrolling Instagram. I saw the little heart you left on your ex's post. And there it is, the real thing under the small thing. The way fights work when you've been married long enough to know where all the soft spots are. Tara's face goes tight in the dashboard light. That was a recipe, Eddie. Tamales. His grandmother's recipe that he posted for Dia de los Muertos. I was being polite. You haven't been polite to me in 6 months. Maybe if you gave me something to be polite about. The desert watches through the windows like it's seen this movie before, like it knows how this ends. Eddie wants to say something cutting, something that'll hurt the way he's hurting, but he's tired, so tired, tired of fighting, tired of keeping score, tired of remembering when they used to be good at this. There's a town ahead, he says after a minute, trying. He's trying. 20 miles, maybe 25, we'll make it. And if we don't? Then we call AAA and wait. He glances at her, really looks at her for the first time in hours. She's got that expression she gets when she's scared but won't admit it, jaw set, eyes forward. Together, we wait together. She almost smiles, almost. The corner of her mouth twitches. Together, right, like we're good at that. We used to be. Yeah, we used to be a lot of things. The silence that follows isn't comfortable, but it's not hostile either. It's the in-between space they've lived in for months now, the DMZ of their marriage. The place where you're not fighting, but you're not okay either, just existing in the same space and hoping that's enough. The road curves. They pass a sign, hand-painted, the wood weathered gray by wind and sun. Wash road closed. Flood damage. Below it, someone spray-painted another sign on a piece of plywood, newer, the letters crooked and urgent. Don't take the wash after dark. The GPS chirps, that pleasant female voice that always sounds slightly disappointed, recalculating. Turn right in 2 miles. Service road, Tara says, leaning forward to look at the map on her phone. The blue line cuts straight across instead of following the highway's curve. Cuts right through. We'd say 15, maybe 20 minutes. Eddie lifts his foot off the gas. Just a little. Just enough to feel the drag of reluctance. The pull of that second sign. That second sign. Locals made that. Or teenagers. You don't spray paint a warning unless you mean it. Or you're bored. She looks at him. Really looks at him for the first time in hours, and he can see the exhaustion there. The weight of 6 years and 12 hours of driving and the knowledge that they're running on fumes in more ways than one. We're almost on empty, Eddie. We need to save time. We need to get to town. Or we could stay on the highway, play it safe. Safe, she says. And there's something in her voice, something that sounds like all the times he's said no in the last year. All the times he's chosen safe over risk, comfortable over unknown. Yeah, safe. That's what we're good at now, right? Playing it safe? It's not fair and they both know it, but fairness went out the window somewhere around year 4, when they stopped being a team and started being opponents. When marriage became a game, nobody was winning. Eddie wants to argue, wants to say that shortcuts through desert at night are how people end up on the news, that those signs are there for a reason, that locals know things tourists don't. But he can feel it, that familiar exhaustion, that sense of fighting the same fight with different words. And maybe she's right. Maybe he has been playing it too safe. Maybe that's part of the problem. Okay, he says finally. We'll take it, but we're careful. Eyes open. Eyes open, she agrees. The turn comes up fast. The highway shoulder crumbles away where the service road branches off, asphalt giving way to packed dirt and pale gravel. They nose down onto a road that's more concept than reality, 2 pale ruts between sage and creosote, where the land sinks in gentle terraces and drops into a broad, pale scar, the dry wash. An ancient riverbed, a place that only remembers being a river when the monsoons come, when the sky opens and the desert drinks deep and the washes fill with brown water that moves like muscles under skin. But tonight the wash is dry, has been dry for months, years, maybe. The moon hangs low and fat, making the sand glow like old bone, like something that was alive once and isn't anymore. For a minute it's almost beautiful. Eddie drives slow. The tires drift a little on the soft surface, then catch, then drift again. It's like driving on something that's only pretending to be solid, something that might change its mind at any moment. Tara keeps her hands folded in her lap, watching the wash floor curve ahead. The tracks in front of them, some other vehicle, hours old or maybe days, soften and blur as they go deeper, like someone drew them in and then started erasing them from the edges in. "You sure this is faster?" Eddie asks. "GPS says so." GPS doesn't know everything. Neither do you. There it is again, that edge. Eddie bites the inside of his cheek and keeps driving. The wash narrows. Earth walls rise on either side, stratified layers of tan and rust and dark brown, compressed over centuries into something that looks almost like muscle, like the earth showing its insides. The car shudders, a subtle thing, the kind you feel in your teeth before you hear it. Eddie puts his palm on the dashboard. "You feel that?" "Yeah." Tara leans forward. "Probably just the road. It's not maintained. It's fine." "Didn't feel fine." "Well, it's not like we can turn around." It comes again, deeper this time, the way a building hums when something big passes underneath, when a train goes by in tunnels you didn't know were there, except there are no trains out here. No roads bigger than the one they've just left. No, nothing, just sand and rock and the slow forgetting of water. They pass another sign, half buried at an angle, the letters scoured away by sand and wind until only the ghost of words remains. Rust eats the edges, a warning nobody can read anymore. A ghost of a warning. "Eddie," Tara says, and her voice has changed, gone tight. "Look." The wash narrows more, the walls rise higher. The moonlight doesn't reach the bottom now, it filters down in thin threads and makes everything look the color of dried blood. The color of rust, the color of things that should stay buried. And there, in the sand ahead, knee-high and sitting in the middle of their path like it's been waiting, a shape. It's not a rock. Rocks don't breathe. It's not an animal. Animals move. It's rounded, wrong. The surface looks soft, granular, like wet sand packed over something, like someone made a mound and then walked away. As they watch, a seam opens along its side, a line that parts slowly, deliberately, and then closes, parts and closes, parts and closes, like a mouth chewing. "What the hell is that?" Tara says quietly. The shape sinks an inch into the sand, then rises, then sinks again, like something breathing underneath, like lungs expanding and contracting in slow rhythm. Eddie's hand finds the door handle. His mouth has gone dry. "Back up! We're backing up!" Tara shifts to reverse, presses the gas. The tires spin. The car sinks. Not much, just a fraction of an inch, just enough to feel it, like stepping on ice and hearing the first crack. She tries forward. The tires spin again, digging themselves deeper. "Shit," she whispers. "Shit, shit, shit." Eddie kills the engine because the sound of it feels wrong out here, too loud, too alive, like shouting in a church or a funeral home or some other place where noise is a violation. The silence lands heavy. "Okay," Tara says, and her voice has that quality it gets when she's scared but won't admit it, when she's pushing down panic and replacing it with action. "Okay," we get out. We look at the tires. We figure it out. Maybe we can push. Maybe we just need to shift the weight. "Stay in the tracks," Eddie says. "Don't step anywhere that looks soft." I know that, Eddie. Jesus, I'm not stupid. I didn't say you were. You were thinking it. They open the doors at the same time and the night presses in. The heat, the smell of minerals and brush baked all day under sun and now cooling, releasing that scent that smells like metal and dust and time. The sand at their feet looks smooth, harmless, like a beach, like something you'd walk across barefoot without thinking twice. Their footsteps make no sound. That's the first thing Eddie notices. His boots should crunch, should compress the sand and make that satisfying sound of pressure and give, but there's nothing, like walking on carpet, like walking on something that's listening. He circles the car, eyes on the ground, watching for soft patches, for places that look crusted over, or darker, or wrong somehow. Tara moves toward the shape because she's always been the one who can't leave things alone, who has to know, who has to see. It has texture to it up close, fine grains. The seam opens again, wider this time, and there's something inside, not darkness, not emptiness. Movement. Eddie, she says, and now her voice has gone past scared into something else, something that sounds like standing at the edge of a cliff and looking down. He's at her side in 2 steps, looks at the shape, looks at that seam opening and closing, opening and closing. Nope, he says, and the word is both prayer and plan. Nope, we're not doing this. Back to the car, now. They back up together, slow, careful. The shape doesn't follow. But behind them, toward the center of the wash, the darkness isn't flat anymore. It bulges, rises. A dune where there shouldn't be one because the wash floor was flat 30 seconds ago and now it's not. The dune lifts itself a fraction, just a breath's worth, then subsides, like a chest expanding, like something big, waking up. Get in the car, Eddie says, and his voice cracks in the last word. They're almost there when the ground beside Eddie's left foot just gives, folds out from under itself with the sound of 1,000 small beads cascading down a bowl, or sand running through fingers, or time running out. He stumbles, throws his hands out, hits the sand. It gives under his palms, then holds, then gives again, like a handshake from someone deciding whether to let go or squeeze. I've got you, Tara says, and she's there, grabbing his arm, hauling back. Get your knee under you, get your... The wash exhales. Not wind, not air, a movement, a going out, a sense of something massive beneath them letting go of a breath it's been holding, and with it comes a smell, wet stone, minerals, meat that sat too long in a warm room, copper and earth and rot braided together. Eddie's eyes water. The sand under him flexes, swallows, then hardens like concrete, locking him in place to mid-shin. Don't pull, Tara says, and her voice is flipped into that register she only uses when she's more scared than he is, higher and thinner and trying very hard not to break. You'll drive yourself deeper. Don't pull. I'm getting the jack. I'm getting... Eddie hears something beneath the sand, the tiniest scrape, like metal on bone, like something dragging itself closer. Tara, hold on, just hold on. She runs for the trunk, pops it. The interior light spills out and catches the wash walls, and Eddie sees things he didn't see before, shapes in the stratified earth, not rocks, not natural formations. Helmets half dissolved by time, brackets gone to rust, the blind eyes of old lamps poking from the bank like mushrooms, like the earth is fruiting metal. Miners' tools. The desert tried to digest them and gave up. Eddie's breath goes shallow. He tries to lean forward, to claw himself free, but the surface shivers away from his fingers like it's wet, like it's water pretending to be sand. The seam mouth near his hand, the one attached to that shape they saw, opens wider, closes, opens, a foot from his hand. Testing distance. Learning reach. Don't move, Tara says, and she's back with the jack, breathing hard, hand shaking. Give me your belt. Give me here. She loops his belt around his thigh, above the knee, cinches it tight, hooks the tongue over the jack's head, braces the base against the car frame. The first pump is stubborn. The second rises easier. Eddie feels pressure building in his leg, and then the weirdest sensation, his leg narrowing inside the earth as the sand gives by degrees, by millimeters, like something deciding whether he's worth the effort. "That's it," Tara says, and she's crying now, tears cutting lines through the dust on her face. "That's it. You're coming up. You're—" Something below latches around his ankle. Not teeth, not fingers, not any part of any animal he knows. A ring, a band. Made of the same material as the wash itself, grains fused together with something hard and rough, like stone that learned to grip, like the earth making a fist. It tightens with terrible patience, with the confidence of something that knows it's already won. Eddie yells a single short sound that bounces off the wash walls and comes back wrong, distorted, like the wash is mocking him, and Tara's eyes go huge and white in the moonlight. "Eddie, get in the car," he says, because he feels it now, the moment everything changes, the hinge point. The place where before becomes after. "Get in the car so I can pull against something that won't move." "I'm not." "Do it." She obeys, stumbling around the open door, bracing one foot against the jack, both hands on the belt. Her face is a mask of concentration and terror, and something else, something that looks like all 6 years of their marriage compressing into this single moment. 3, she says. 2. They pull together. It's like trying to lift a car, like trying to move a mountain. The belt creaks and cuts into Eddie's thigh, and the jack leans at an angle that makes metal complain. The ring around his ankle grinds down through denim into skin, through skin toward bone, and Eddie hears his own voice split apart and scatter. The ring gives a millimeter. Again, he gasps. Again. They haul. Tara's making sounds that don't have words, animal sounds, the sounds you make when you're trying to hold on to something and feeling it slip. The sand resists, tries to become liquid, fails, reverts to sand with a sound like a sigh. Something below the surface slips. The ring loosens a fraction, then tightens. Then loosens again, like it's deciding whether the top half of Eddie Martinez is worth as much as the bottom half, like it's doing math about weight and fear and which parts taste better. When his leg comes free, it's not clean. The denim is shredded, hanging in strips. The skin below is scored with pale crescents, like someone pressed seashells into him and twisted, like the earth left its fingerprints. Blood beads up, bright and red in the headlights, black everywhere else. "Car," Tara says. Her voice has gone flat. "Shock, maybe, or something past shock. Get in the car, now." They slam inside like drowning people finding air, like astronauts finding atmosphere. Tara twists the key with shaking hands. The engine coughs, falters. And for one terrible second, Eddie thinks it's not going to catch, thinks they're going to sit here and wait for whatever's underneath to try again. But it catches, angry and awake. "Slow," Eddie says through his teeth. "Even pressure. Don't gun it." She eases forward, around the sea-mouth shape. The tires climb a small rib of packed earth and slither down the other side. The car leans toward center. The sound of the ground changes again, less whisper, more murmur, like a crowd waking up, like a theater before the show starts. They clear the first bend. The wash walls loom higher on either side, closing in, making the strip of sky overhead narrow to a ribbon. Stars disappear. The headlights sweep across something nailed to a piece of rebar jammed crooked in the bank. A tin lantern dangles from it on a length of chain, turning slowly in the light like it remembers how to move, like it's performing for an audience of none. "Almost there," Tara says, and Eddie can hear the lie in it, the hope that's really fear wearing a mask. It opens up ahead. "See? You can see where the starlight goes wide." "Don't stop," Eddie says. "Whatever happens, don't stop." I'm not going to. The ground ahead rises. A pale swell, a wave without water. It humps up in the middle of the wash like something underneath is pressing against a sheet, like a sleeper rolling over. The wave splits down the middle with the sound of fabric tearing. And underneath, a hole, a mouth. A dark opening full of smaller openings, arrayed in patterns that would make sense if you weren't human, if your brain could parse geometries that don't exist in 3 dimensions. An absence of light so complete that the headlight beams just stop, like they've hit a wall, like light itself is afraid to go any deeper. The car jumps the first ridge. The suspension screams. The belly scrapes across the second ridge with a metallic shriek that sounds like the car is screaming, like metal is learning how to express pain. They straddle the hole, and for a second Eddie thinks they might make it, might bridge the gap and keep going. Then the frame snags. The front tires hang, spinning uselessly in air. The back tires spit sand and catch and spit again. The wash takes a patient breath in, the way you breathe before lifting something heavy. Reverse, Eddie says, and his voice is barely there. Feather it. Light pressure. Tara does. The back tires catch. Stutter forward an inch. The car groans like a living thing. The belly drags another inch across whatever's down there. Sparks fly up. The smell of hot metal and scorched paint fills the car. Then something from inside the hole reaches up and knocks twice on the undercarriage. Polite, measured, the way a neighbor knocks when they need to borrow sugar. Out, Eddie says. Right now. Out, out, out. They fling the doors open. The car sags in relief as their weight leaves it, settling deeper into the hole's embrace. Tara scrambles onto the narrow shelf of bank on the passenger side, fingers digging for purchase in the crumbling earth. Eddie limps around the hood on his bad leg, every step a knife, and climbs the driver's side. The car settles another inch, another. The hole expands around it like a throat swallowing. Tara looks over the edge once, just once, long enough to see what's down there. Bones. Not piled, not scattered, drifted. Arranged in layers like sediment, old and polished by sand, mixed with iron and leather and coils of something that looks like roots but isn't, something that grew out of the bank and learned to look organic. Miners' belts, the leather gone to fossil, lamps, the glass intact and hollow, goggles that still hold 2 little moons of glass, reflecting nothing. She backs away fast, palms pressed to the bank, eyes up. Eddie, she says, and she's not looking at him. She's looking higher, where the bank rises and the wash walls lean toward each other like a throat narrowing, like architecture designed to funnel and trap. There are holes in those walls. Dozens of them, maybe hundreds, round as bottles, set in rows, in patterns, in configurations that would make sense if the people who dug them weren't people anymore. The edges are smooth, but if you look close, if you let your eyes adjust and your mind bend, you can see tool marks, deliberate marks. Hands did this. Or something that learned what hands do. The holes begin to exhale. Quiet at first, just a whisper of movement, of air being pushed through narrow spaces, then louder, a sound like breath through a straw, like wind through 100 narrow throats, all learning the same song. The seam mouths across the wash floor open wider, one, then another, then another. Little smiles appearing in the sand, lips without faces, mouths without heads, all of them chewing nothing, all of them patient. Run, Eddie says, and the word comes out broken. But there's nowhere to run. There's nowhere to go but up, and up is a crumbling bank that gives beneath their hands. Earth that acts like earth until you trust it and then becomes something else. The desert made a bowl of this place and put them at the bottom, at the spoon's deepest point. Tara moves first because she's always moved first, always been the one to act while Eddie thinks. She scrambles up the bank on hands and feet and knees, digging for purchase, grabbing at roots that aren't roots, at rocks that crumble. The earth gives beneath her fingers like old bread, like something that's been wet and dried too many times. She slides back 2 feet for every foot she gains. Eddie follows, dragging his bad leg, teeth clenched in an animal rictus that's half pain and half rage. He's strong, has always been strong. He's built houses with these hands, framed walls and set joists and carried loads that would break smaller men. He's fixed engines and moved furniture and carried his father out of a hospice room when the old man couldn't walk anymore, when dignity meant being carried. He's strong. The wash doesn't care about strong. The exhale becomes a whisper. The whisper becomes a murmur. The murmur becomes something you can't quite hear with your ears but feel in your bones, in the spaces between vertebrae, in the hollow of your skull. And what it says, what it's always been saying, is simple. Down. Come down. Everything comes down eventually. The car tilts and goes with startling grace, slipping into the hole like it was meant for it, like that was the plan all along. Like someone drew a map and marked an X and said, here. It vanishes to the windows, then the roof, then the antenna that quivers like a finger and then is gone. The sand flows like liquid around it, and then when the car is fully swallowed, hardens again, flat, smooth, innocent, like nothing ever happened here. The bank under Tara's knee collapses a foot. She lurches, catches herself, grabs at something that looks like a cable but might be bone or mineral or all three fused together by time and pressure. It holds. She climbs. Her hands bleed in crescent moons where her nails tear. Almost, she says to herself, gasping. And she's wrong, but you have to be wrong to keep moving. You have to lie to yourself or you'll stop. She clears the lip, hauls herself over the edge. The desert beyond is flat and vast and scrub-pocked, the moon bleaching everything to bone white, making all shadows disappear. The safety of up looks like a lie someone told to make you die softer. She turns, reaches back. Eddie! He's a yard below, then 2 yards, then 3. He's smiling a little, that tired, angry smile he gets when he knows how a fight is going to end but keeps fighting anyway. Go, he says, and the word is so quiet she almost doesn't hear it. Give me your hand. Tara. Give me your fucking hand. He does. He reaches up and she reaches down, and their fingers clamp together with all the strength of 6 years and 12 therapy sessions and 1,000 small arguments that never got resolved. The wash takes another patient breath in. The cable in Tara's other hand hums like a tuning fork, like it's vibrating at frequencies only the earth can hear. Something below stops pretending to be sand. Eddie's face changes. Not his expression stays calm, resigned, almost peaceful, but the alignment changes. His eyes widen just a fraction, the way eyes do when something very wrong is touching you, when your body knows before your brain does that this is the moment, this is the hinge. This is where everything changes permanently and forever. He looks at Tara, and their whole life passes between them, even the parts they never had. The house with the yard they never bought. The kids they never tried for after that miscarriage in year 3 that nobody talks about. The morning coffee ritual they lost somewhere in year 4 when her promotion meant she left before he woke up. The vacations they planned but never took. The promises they made and broke and made again. All of it, right there, in the space between one heartbeat and the next. It's got me, he says calmly, like stating a fact. Like saying it's Tuesday or the sky is blue. You need to go. She shakes her head, pulls. Shut up. Just shut up and help me pull. She hauls back with everything she has, with all 130 pounds of her, with muscles she didn't know she had. Eddie's arm lengthens in a way arms aren't meant to lengthen. She can feel his shoulder joints straining, feel tendons stretching like rubber bands, feel the geometry of his body trying to decide which law of physics to break. The sand makes a sound like a sigh and takes him to the hips. Tara, he says, and now there's something in his voice that sounds like goodbye. She pulls harder. Her own shoulder screams. The cable in her other hand cuts into her palm. Eddie's hand is slipping in her grip, slick with sweat or blood or both. The wash takes his ribs, his chest, his shoulders. Eddie Martinez, who built houses with his hands and fixed engines on weekends and loved his wife even when loving her meant watching her drift away, is pulled down into earth that moves like water, into sand that acts like quicksand but isn't, into something that has no name because the people who knew its name are bones now, polished clean. The sand closes over his face. He's looking at Tara the whole time, eyes locked on hers, and she sees the exact moment he stops fighting, the moment he accepts, the moment he lets go. The sand fills his mouth and nose and eyes, and the last thing he feels is Tara's hand slipping out of his, their fingers separating with the sound of wet glass breaking, with the sound of something that was whole becoming two pieces. His hand slides out of her grip. He's gone. The bank settles. The sea mouths close. The holes in the walls stop exhaling. The wash goes quiet, the way a church goes quiet after the last mourner leaves, the way a theater goes dark after the show ends. The desert puts its mask back on. Tara lies on her belly at the edge for a long time. She doesn't know how long. Time has stopped meaning anything. She tries to reassemble herself one piece at a time. Fingers, knuckles, wrists, elbows, knees, feet. Every part is there. Nothing's missing. Everything feels borrowed. She gets up. It takes 3 tries. Her legs don't want to hold her. The wind starts. Not much. Just enough to erase small steps, to smooth the sand, to make tonight look like last night, look like all the nights before. Okay, she says out loud. Not to the desert, not to Eddie, not to God, just to the air. Just to prove she can still make sounds. Okay. She doesn't take the wash, doesn't try to walk back the way they came. She cuts away from it, over the bank and across open plain, a straight line from dark to slightly less dark. The land tips and climbs and tips again in waves of ancient seabed. She keeps the moon at her left shoulder and the hurt in her hands as a compass. The silence tries to speak to her, tries to form words in the pattern of wind through scrub, in the settling of sand, in the distant cry of something that might be a coyote or might be something learning how to sound like one. She refuses to learn the language. At some point, she doesn't know when, can't measure time anymore, the wind drops completely and the world goes still. The scrub stops rattling, the sand stops shifting, everything holds its breath. She stops too. Behind her, far back or very close, she can't tell. There's a sound, soft, deliberate, like a nail dragged slowly across glass, then another, parallel to the first, then a third. The 3 together make a pattern that would be a word if she weren't human, if her brain could parse meanings that don't exist in any language she knows. She runs. The desert allows this. The desert enjoys it. Motion makes tracks. Tracks make stories. The wash is patient with stories. She doesn't look back. That's the only bravery she has left, the only choice she can still make. Don't look, don't see, don't know. A low ridge rises ahead, a joke of a hill, the kind you swear is always 10 steps farther than it looks. She crests it on hands and knees, gasping, and finds the road, real road. Real asphalt. Double yellow, flayed by heat and time, a sign with bullet holes through every O and A, Tres Piedras 8 miles. She stands in the middle of the road and laughs once, a dry crack, the sound of something breaking that was already broken. Headlights appear in the distance. They move slow, cautious. The shape is familiar in every rural night, a rancher's truck, F-150 or Silverado, something built before computers ran everything. It pulls up 20 feet away and stops with the engine running. The man inside doesn't roll down the window at first. He looks at her through glass, taking her measure, weighing the shape of this story against all the stories he's heard before. He lowers the window 4 inches. "You lost?" "Yes," she says. Then, because it's truer, "No." "You're hurt." She looks down. sees her hands for the first time, the blood, the crescents, the dirt under her nails. Yes. He looks past her toward the wash, toward the cut in the land where the darkness seems deeper. "You don't take that road after dark," signs say. "I saw them," she says. He nods once, like that's all the confession necessary, all the explanation required. The window goes down the rest of the way. "Get in." She does. The truck is old and smells like oil and dust and hard work, like a lifetime of 5 a.m. mornings, and animals that need feeding and fences that need mending. The man shifts back onto the road and drives with both hands at 10 and 2, eyes on the dark ahead. He doesn't ask questions, doesn't look at her, just drives. After a mile, he says, "You lose somebody back there?" Her throat closes, muscles spasm. She nods because speaking would break something that's barely holding. "I'm sorry," he says, and means it. The kind of sorry that knows exactly what it's sorry for. They drive in silence. The wash disappears behind scrub and rise and the curve of the earth. The stars come back. The world pretends to be normal. After another mile, he speaks again. His voice is quiet, careful, like he's telling a story he's told before and knows all the places where people stop believing. "You ever hear about El Arrastrado?" "No," she says. He's quiet for a long moment. His hands tighten on the wheel. Old story. Tres Piedras, Ojo Caliente, all through here. Goes back to the 1880s. Gold rush, they called it, but it was really silver. Turned out to be mostly quartz and wishful thinking. She waits. The heater blows warm air that smells like dust. "There was a mine," he continues. "The Santa Rosa. Named it after somebody's daughter or wife or saint. Doesn't matter now. They dug deep. Too deep, probably. Had maybe 30, 35 men working it at the peak. Mexicans, mostly. Some Irish, few Chinese, whoever needed work bad enough to go underground." Tara's hands are shaking. She folds them in her lap. One day in April 18th, 1882, the whole thing collapsed. Whole mountain seemed to give up its ghost. They said you could hear it from miles, that rumble, that sound of the earth deciding to be flat again. Killed most of them outright, crushed, buried, gone before they knew what was happening. He pauses, swallows, but not all of them. "What happened to the others?" Her voice sounds like someone else's voice. "They say one man lived through it, got trapped down there in the dark with the bodies. No air, no water, no light, just rock and sand and the weight of the world pressing in on all sides. They say he was down there for 3 days, long enough to go through all the stages, you know, panic, prayer, bargaining. And then, when those run out, when you've got nothing left, he trails off." "What?" "They say he made a deal." "With what?" The rancher looks at her for the first time. His eyes are very dark, very old, with whatever lives that deep. Whatever's been down there since before people, since before names, since this whole desert was ocean floor and the bones of things we don't have words for were settling into mud. Something old. Something patient. Tara feels cold despite the heater. When they finally dug down to where the cave-in was, took them 5 days. They didn't find bodies. Not whole ones, anyway. They found bones. Clean bones. Picked clean, like something had been eating, methodical and slow. And they found tracks. What kind of tracks? Hoof prints, but wrong. Only 3 toes instead of 2, and the spacing was off. Like whatever made them was standing upright, walking on 2 legs, but with hooves where feet should be. He takes a breath, lets it out slow. El Arrastrado, that's what the old-timers called it. The dragged one. The miner who got dragged down into the earth and made his deal and came back up as something else. They say it's got a ram's skull for a head, horns curled back like it died screaming, and the screaming ossified. Arms too long, stretched out like someone grabbed the wrists and pulled pulled until something tore and then healed wrong. 3 fingers on each hand, hooves for feet, those 3-toed prints. And the body. He stops. What about the body? Covered in scars, deep ones, the kind you get from rocks grinding against you, from being buried alive, from making deals in the dark. They say you can see where the earth tried to keep him, tried to hold him down, and he fought his way back up anyway, or something pulled him back up. What does it do? Tara asks, though she already knows, has already seen. It controls the earth, the sand, the wind, not like magic, like ownership, like when you own something so completely you don't have to think about it, you just move and it moves. Everything in that wash belongs to it now. It hunts at night, drags people down into the sand the same way it was dragged down into rock. They say if you cross the wash after dark, you're making the same deal it made. You're agreeing to be taken. Can it be killed? The rancher shakes his head, slow, sad. Can't kill something that's already dead. Can't kill earth. Can't kill wind. Can't kill a deal made that deep, in that kind of dark. Best you can do is stay out of the wash after dark and hope it forgets about you. Hope, Tara says. It's all we got out here. The town appears, small, sleeping. The gas station is dark, pumps standing like sentries in the yellow light of a single sodium lamp. The sheriff's office has one light over the door and a vending machine humming by the entrance, the only signs of life. The rancher parks, leaves the engine running. You want me to walk you in? No, she says. Thank you. You've done enough. He nods, looks at her, really looks, the way you look at someone when you're trying to remember their face. I'm sorry about he pauses, searching for the right word and not finding it, about who you lost. My husband, she says, and the word tastes like dust and blood in the last 6 years all at once. Eddie. I'm sorry. She gets out. Her legs barely hold her. She goes up the concrete steps, one hand on the railing, and stops at the door. She can feel it rising up, that instinct to say it was nothing, to tell a different story, to make the shape smaller and more manageable, to be normal, to not be the crazy woman who came out of the desert talking about sand that breathes. She opens the door and goes inside. The deputy at the desk looks up. He's young, late 20s probably, with the tired eyes of someone pulling graveyard shift in a town where nothing happens, and that's usually a good thing. Ma'am, you okay? No, she says, and for once in her life the honesty feels like relief. She speaks, makes sentences, describes the wash, the shapes, the holes in the walls, the car sinking, Eddie getting pulled under. The deputy types with 2 fingers, hunt and peck, and his face stays carefully neutral, but his hands pause sometimes like he's heard versions of this before, like there's a folder somewhere with other stories that sound like hers. We'll send a team out at first light, he says when she's done. With the coordinates you gave us, we should be able to locate the vehicle and... You won't find him, she says. Ma'am, you won't find anything except maybe some car parts, maybe the frame, maybe not even that. You won't find bones. You won't find clothes. You won't find anything that says Eddie Martinez was ever there. The deputy looks at her, really looks. His careful, neutral expression cracks just a little. This isn't the first time someone's come in here with a story about that wash. I know, she says. They offer water, coffee. They ask if there's someone to call, someone who can come get her. She gives her mother's number in Albuquerque and a friend's name in Santa Fe. She sits in a chair that's held other bodies, other stories, and swings between exhaustion and a strange feral calm that feels like standing on a narrow beam over a long drop. Before she leaves, she takes out her phone. The screen is cracked, spiderweb fractures across the glass. Must have happened when she was climbing, but it still works. She opens voice memos. Her thumb hovers over the record button. Why is she doing this? Who's going to listen? What good does it do? She presses record anyway. My name is Tara Martinez, she says, and her voice sounds thin and far away, like it's coming from the bottom of a well. She checks the wall clock. The hands say 2:47. The date says October 9th. The numbers look like they belong to a different life. It's 2:47 in the morning, October 9th. My husband and I took the wash road, the dry wash near Tres Piedras. We thought it would be faster. We were running out of gas and we needed to save time, and there were warnings, but we took it anyway. She stops, breathes, continues. If this is all that's left, if this is what somebody finds, then please, please don't send anyone in there after dark. Don't take the shortcut. Don't think the warnings are a joke. They're not a joke. They're not. Her voice breaks. She doesn't finish the thought. She stops recording. Her thumb hovers over the play button, but she doesn't press it. Can't, not yet, maybe not ever. She saves it to a folder labeled October and locks her phone. The deputy drives her to the only motel in town. One story, pink stucco going orange-brown with age, a sign that says vacancy in letters that haven't been updated since 1987. She thanks him, goes inside. The clerk is old and doesn't ask questions, just takes cash and hands over a key attached to a diamond-shaped piece of plastic. The room smells like old carpet and air conditioning in every cheap motel she's ever stayed in. She sits on the bed and stares at her hands, the crescents in her palms where she grabbed that cable. The dried blood gone brown, the dirt under her nails, that's not really dirt. She should shower, should sleep, should call her mother and say what? Should call Eddie's mother and say what? She does none of these things. She sits and watches the window and waits for morning, for light, for something to make sense again, knowing that nothing will ever make sense the same way. 3 months later, Tara lives in Albuquerque now, in a studio apartment on the second floor of a building that smells like other people's cooking and old paint. She got a job at a coffee shop called Daily Grind because it's the kind of work where you don't have to think, where your hands do the motions grind, tamp, pour, steam, and your brain can go somewhere else, anywhere else. Eddie's mom came to town for the memorial service. They held it at a little chapel near the Rio Grande because Eddie used to say he wanted to be scattered in moving water, wanted to keep moving even after. There was no body to bury. They put up a small bronze plaque on a columbarium wall with his name and the dates. Edward James Martinez, born 1989, died 2024. It doesn't say how. It doesn't say where. It doesn't say that he was dragged into the earth by something that shouldn't exist. It just says the dates, like dates are enough. Tara hasn't gone back to the wash. She hasn't needed to. It started small. Little things she told herself were nothing, were stress, or grief playing tricks. Sand in her shoes when she hadn't been anywhere near a beach. Sand in her bed between the sheets, gritty and wrong. Sand in the sink, in the shower drain, in the crack between the bathroom tiles. She swept it up, threw it away. It came back. Then the sound started. At night, when the building settled and the neighbors went quiet, when the only sound should be the hum of the refrigerator and the tick of the heater, she'd hear it, a soft scraping, like something dragging itself across the floor above her, like claws on wood, like hooves on tile. Except there was no floor above her. She was on the top floor. She told herself it was pipes, old building, bad plumbing, water hammer, expansion and contraction, all the reasonable explanations. But pipes don't breathe. One night she woke 3 a.m., the worst hour, and found sand piled in the corner of her room, not scattered like it had blown in, not tracked like she'd brought it, piled, deliberate, shaped, almost like... She didn't finish the thought, got up, swept it into a dustpan, carried it downstairs in her bathrobe, threw it in the dumpster outside, came back upstairs, locked the door, triple-checked it. The pile was back in the morning, bigger. She moved the furniture, checked every wall for cracks, every window for gaps, taped over the vents. Nothing helped. The sand kept coming. Last week she found tracks. 3-toed, pressed into the sand pile, each print the size of her palm, the toes splayed wide, the weight distributed wrong for anything that walks on Earth. She stared at them for a long time, then took a picture with her phone, looked at the picture, deleted it, took another, deleted that too. What was she going to do? Show someone? Say what? Prove what? That she's being haunted by desert sand? That something followed her home from a wash that ate her husband? They'd think she was crazy. Hell, maybe she is crazy. Maybe grief does this. Makes you see patterns where there aren't any. Makes you think coincidence is conspiracy. Except, that night she heard the scraping again. Closer this time. Not above her. Not beside her. Outside her door. She stood in the dark living room in her pajamas and listened. The scraping moved back and forth, patient, methodical, like something testing the strength of the wood, learning the gaps, finding the weaknesses. She thought about opening the door, thought about looking through the peephole, thought about shouting who's there, the way people do in movies. Didn't. In the morning, the sand was gone, the tracks were gone, everything was clean. But the smell was there, faint but unmistakable, wet stone, minerals, meat left in a warm room. She knows now, knows what the rancher meant, what the wash meant when it let her go. She didn't escape. She was released. Arrastrado let her climb out, let her run, let her think she was free, think she'd gotten away, think she'd survived when Eddie hadn't. But the deal isn't done. The agreement wasn't completed. She got out of the wash, but she took something with her, or something followed her, or, and this is the thought that wakes her up sweating, maybe she's still there. Maybe she never left. Maybe she's still climbing that bank, still reaching for Eddie's hand, still watching him sink, and everything since is just her brain trying to make sense of suffocation, trying to give her a few more seconds of life before the sand fills her lungs. She doesn't know which is worse. Tonight, she stands in her apartment and looks at the window. It's closed, locked, the curtains are drawn, but there's sand on the sill. Fresh sand, damp, like it came from somewhere deep and wet and old, somewhere underground where water used to be. She takes out her phone, opens the voice memo app, scrolls to October. The file is still there, labeled with the date and time. 2:47 a.m., October 9. She hasn't listened to it since that night, hasn't been able to, but now she needs to hear it, needs to hear Eddie's name in her voice, needs to remember that it was real, that he was real, that they drove into that wash together and only one of them drove out. She presses play. Her own voice comes through the tiny speaker, thin and scared. My name is Tara Martinez. It's 2:47 in the morning, October 9th. My husband and I took the wash road. She listens to herself talk, listens to herself say the warnings, say please, say don't. And then, at the end, underneath her voice, so faint she'd never noticed it before because she'd never listened past her own words, a scraping sound. 3 distinct drags, slow, deliberate, like claws on stone, like hooves on wood, like something that's been practicing, learning, getting it right. And then, softer still, barely there, a breath, long and patient and satisfied, the same breath she's been hearing outside her door. She stops the recording, sets the phone down with shaking hands, looks at the sand on the windowsill. It's moving. Just a little, just enough to see if you're watching, grains shifting and gathering, drawn together by something underneath, by pressure from below, by intention. The pile grows, rises, takes shape. She backs away slow, her spine hits the wall. The sand forms a mound, small at first, then bigger, rising like dough, like something inflating from within, a shape she recognizes. The seam mouth, the thing that chews, the thing that sat in the middle of the wash and opened and closed, learning what mouths do. It opens now, in her apartment, On her windowsill, a line that parts to show darkness inside, movement inside, something inside that isn't sand anymore. It closes, opens, closes. Testing, learning, practicing. She doesn't scream. Screaming won't help. She learned that already. Learned it in the wash when Eddie was taken, and screaming just made her throat raw, made her voice break, changed nothing. She watches the shape, pulse, and breathe, and knows with absolute certainty that Arrastrado isn't done with her, maybe won't ever be done. The wash let her go, but only so it could follow. Only so it could learn where she lives, what she fears, how she tastes when she's alone and scared, and starting to understand that escape was never real. The rancher was wrong about one thing. Hope isn't all they have out here. Hope is what the desert eats first. The sand mound collapses, flattens. The grains scatter across the sill and floor like they were never organized at all, like she imagined the whole thing, like grief and trauma and 3 months of bad sleep are playing tricks. But she didn't imagine it. She knows she didn't. Tara picks up her phone, opens her contacts, scrolls to her mother's name. Her finger hovers over the call button. What would she even say? Mom, I'm being haunted by sand. Mom, something followed me home from the desert. Mom, I think I'm next. She locks the phone, sets it down, goes to the kitchen, gets the broom, sweeps up the sand, throws it in the trash, same as every night. It'll be back tomorrow. She knows this now. It'll always be back. The wash is patient. El Arrastrado is patient. And Tara Martinez, who escaped the dry wash one October night, who climbed out while her husband was dragged down, is learning what patience feels like from the other side. She turns off the lights, goes to bed, lies in the dark with her eyes open and listens. The scraping starts an hour later. Soft, steady, rhythmic, just outside her door. 3 drags, pause, 3 drags, pause. Like something counting, like something keeping time. She closes her eyes and pretends to sleep, and knows that somewhere deep under New Mexico, in a wash that only remembers being a river when it rains, something with a ram's skull and 3-fingered hands and scars from being buried alive is smiling. It has all the time in the world, and so does she, whether she wants it or not. Folklore note. The dry washes of northern New Mexico are remnants of ancient waterways, carved deep during periods of heavy rainfall and left empty during droughts that can last years. The Hispano and Pueblo communities that have lived in this region for centuries carry warnings about crossing these washes after dark, though the reasons vary depending on who you ask. Some say its practical flash floods can appear with no warning, even when the sky overhead is clear, as storms many miles away send walls of water rushing through the channels with enough force to flip vehicles and drown livestock. The dry sand can turn to quicksand in seconds, and what looks solid isn't. But older stories suggest something else. In the 1880s, silver fever brought hundreds of miners to the mountains around Tres Piedras, Ojo Caliente, and the Sangre de Cristo Range. Many of these mines were poorly shored, dug too deep and too fast by men desperate for fortune. Cave-ins were common. The dead were often left where they fell. The cost of retrieval outweighed the value of the bodies. Some mines were simply sealed with the dead still inside, marked with a cross or a stone cairn and forgotten. Local oral histories speak of miners who survived collapses, trapped in the dark for days with the corpses of their companions, driven mad by thirst and the terrible weight of stone. Some say these men made bargains with older things, pre-Columbian spirits of earth and stone that the Spanish called demonios de la tierra, demons of the earth, beings that predated human language, that remembered when this desert was ocean floor, when different rules applied. The Tewa people have their own term, Po Tezave, the dustwalkers, spirits that move through sand and stone as easily as humans move through air. They say these beings were here first, before people, before names, and they don't take kindly to those who disturb their territory without proper respect. By whatever name, the warnings are consistent across cultures. Do not cross the dry washes after sunset. Do not stop if your vehicle breaks down in the channel. Do not investigate sounds you hear beneath the sand. Do not trust the ground that looks solid. And if you see something that looks like a person but moves wrong, walks wrong, sounds wrong, do not approach it. Do not answer if it calls your name. The desert keeps its own time, its own rules, its own debts. And those who break them are not killed, they're collected, added to a population that lives just beneath the surface, waiting with terrible patience for the next traveler to ignore the signs and take the shortcut. After all, shortcuts through the desert aren't shortcuts. They're agreements. And the desert always collects its debts. Well, boys and ghouls, that wraps up another terrorific tale from the vault. I'd say Eddie and Tara's relationship problems got buried pretty deep, wouldn't you? Though I suppose when your marriage counselor says reconnect with nature, she probably didn't mean become one with it. At least Eddie doesn't have to worry about those counseling bills anymore. Talk about cutting costs. If this story left you feeling absolutely drained, hit that subscribe button. New creature features drop daily at 8 p.m. Central, and trust me, tomorrow's even nastier. Leave a like if you'll never take a desert shortcut again, and drop a comment have you ever ignored a warning sign and lived to regret it. What's the worst shortcut you've ever taken? I'm always hunting for the next nightmare. Remember, the desert doesn't forgive, it doesn't forget, and sometimes escape is just another word for being followed home. Until next time, kiddies, keep your fires burning and your eyes on the shadows. This has been your late night creature feature.